In this episode, we talk about the popularity of pigeon racing in Punjab and why animal rights activists have been speaking out against it. We also talk about PM Modi reaching Moscow for the India-Russia annual summit. But first, we talk about the reasons why cities like Delhi get flooded every monsoon season. Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. At the end of last month, a bout of heavy rain brought many parts of Delhi to a complete standstill.
The national capital is in a mess after the rains.
दिल्ली एनसीआर में थोड़ी सी बारिश क्या हुई, लुटियन दिल्ली के तमाम इलाकों में जल भराव की स्थिति हो गई।
ये पीडब्ल्यूडी का नाला सारा ओवरफ्लो है। मानसून रहते हुए इन्होंने दिल्ली के नालों की सफाई नहीं कराई, जिसकी वजह से जल भराव की समस्या आ चुकी है। हम सदन में बार-बार
Streets across the city became flooded, causing long traffic jams. Waterlogging led to extended power cuts, property damage, and loss of life. A total of 11 people died during that time due to building collapses and electrocution. Now, the rain that Delhi experienced that week was unprecedented. According to the India Meteorological Department, it was the highest rainfall the city had received in June in 88 years. However, unprecedented rainfall was not the only reason the city became inundated, because this is something that happens almost every monsoon season. Experts suggest that it is actually unchecked and poorly planned urban expansion that is the primary cause why cities like Delhi get flooded. Indian Express's Shiny Varghese has been writing about this issue for the paper, and she now joins us to talk about it. Shiny, you have been speaking to experts about this issue. What are the things they tell you about the reason why Delhi gets flooded every monsoon?
While speaking to experts, there were three things that they told us. One is urbanization, which basically means the kind of concrete that we have been pouring on the roads over our riverbeds, that's been causing major flooding.
And for those who might not know, tell us, why is this a problem? Why does the use of concrete affect this problem?
So when you look at your roads today, you might remember if you walk down those roads at one point along the line of the roads, there would be, just mud paths, places where water would accumulate, but it would somehow seep into the soil. There was soft soil then.
So the soil would essentially absorb all that rainwater.
Yeah. Exactly. And including your own homes, quite often homes which had a setback, which basically meant you had a little lawn around, that was just soil. It wasn't concrete, it wasn't tiled, it wasn't your car park. So these are the places which automatically absorbed water, which today is now, you've just poured concrete over it, and today, be it your roads which are tarred or concretized, be it your houses where you have kind of concretized your own lawns. This is one, a reason why there's been flooding, because in your own home, it starts in your own home. So that is one. The second thing is, of course, that we all know that our solid waste goes into our drains and automatically it gets flooded, be it in real estate, builder apartments, or be it your DDA. Now, because drains are getting blocked, that's the most obvious reason why.
And aren't these drains cleaned regularly by the civic authorities?
I mean, they do it as part of, the desilting process, but it is also comes down to civic sense, I think, that public should have, which I keep telling all the people, whomever I meet, that, just like how we had polio awareness drives, let's bring out awareness advertisements across to say, do not litter, do not throw your waste. We really have to do that as a campaign at a municipal level, at a RWA level, so that there is that kind of awareness that happens.
Right. For example, we know that plastic is something that regularly gets stuck and it blocks these drains.
Yes, absolutely. So while the NDMC will tell you that they are cleaning up and all that, it comes down to the common person as well. The third reason for flooding is also that a lot of our low-lying areas are now being built. So there was a time when in South Delhi, for instance, all the water came into Sarai Kale Khan, because that is how from the ridge to the Yamuna, to the river, there's a 100-meter drop.
Okay, so the ridge in Delhi is the higher point and the Yamuna is the low-lying area. And before all this urbanization, the rainwater would just flow down easily into the river.
Absolutely. And you had a lot of these river channels that flowed into Sarai Kale Khan. Today what's happening is most of these channels, or what we call nalas, they are now turned into waste dumps. by default, by MCD themselves are now, because our waste management issues are also a huge problem. So in and around the Yamuna Diversity Park, while we were talking to one of our experts, he was saying that within that 5-kilometer radius, there is a lot of these water bodies which were once upon a time, kind of sponges for the city. They have been converted into garbage dumps. So obviously there's not going to be, if on paper Delhi had about 1,000 water bodies, today we have only 400. So where are the 600? That's a lot of concrete that's there in Delhi already. And we know how the NCR has expanded as well, where real estate has come in places where that water today seeps from the floor up. Your walls, we cover it up with tiles, but you do see that happening. There is water seepage that happens from the floor below. And that's because you're building on the riverbed. And if you look at that, it's been happening right through for a very long time. It's not something that happened in the last 4 or 5 years. So water has to go, and water is now being channelized in a way that, there is no place for it to go.
Right, and this is happening at a time when the city is seeing rapid urbanization. So could you talk a bit about that, about just how fast that is happening?
So I have a couple of numbers here. So, in 2012, when they last mapped NCR, and the NCR, the National Capital Region, actually expanded. At that time, Delhi itself was only 1,483 square kilometers. Now with NCR, which includes your Ghaziabad, Faridabad, all these areas, it's 55,083 almost square kilometers.
Right, and this last count was in 2018, which means that in 6 years, the city grew 37 times more, and that's not even counting the last 5 years.
Yes, so it's that kind of expansion that we're talking about. Then bridges, the other thing, from the north to the south. So from the Wazirabad barrage to the Okhla barrage, the number of bridges in Delhi have expanded massively. So you have around 25 bridges across 22 kilometers in Yamuna alone. So at the base of these bridges is of course, there's a lot of concrete that's poured in. And that's for a good 1 kilometer, because if these columns don't stand, then obviously they're going to fall. So there's a lot of concrete that's poured into these bridges. So while the city will privilege a vehicle, end of the day, this is the price you pay for the concrete you've poured on the riverbed.
And Shiny, going forward, we are going to see more urbanization. There are no two ways about it. What do experts say should be kept in mind while you're expanding a city?
The first thing they say is stop concretizing everything. Leave soft soil in as many places as you can, which begins in your own backyard. Stop putting tiles onto your lawns. Allow for water to seep through so that, the groundwater is recharged. The problem we also have is that we don't have water during the summers. And that primarily happens because your groundwater is not recharged. So that is one. One of the experts even suggested that we have filtration pits so that the water goes in through the aquifers into the soil, and that's how you can kind of, recharge the soil, but also allow for that filtration to happen so that the aquifers automatically recharge groundwater. The third thing is see that you do not build in low-lying areas, which brings us to a very important suggestion about water planning. When we do our master planning, we don't think of water as a resource. And that is where the problem is. So if we have water planning, where we are looking at how will the rainwater come in, how will we manage the flood water, how are we going to manage the waste sewage water that comes in. So if we have a cyclical kind of a system for water planning, we will be able to manage our water better. You can't fight nature, you can't fight water. You have to find a way to work with it. And countries that have done that have actually been able to manage urban flooding much better. Because with climate change, it's not going to get any better, as you've said. So it is a problem of just being able to have a water plan in place, of just having a master plan, of looking at the land more than just it being a real estate landmass or land pool together, and then you kind of sell it as, land for a builder or an institution, an airport, whatever you're doing. Look at the way that the lay of the land is. Don't look at a 2D way of building, look at a 3D way of building, so that you're able to plan the way that we live above the surface. And what happens to look at the hydrological flow of the land as well.
And so, Shiny, to what extent aren't these things being done? What are city planners and builders thinking and not thinking of while building? Because the things you spoke about, aren't those things happening at all?
They should be, ideally. And when the Delhi Urban Arts Commission was set up, they were set up primarily for this reason, to be able to look at your maps in a 3D format. To say that, okay, if you're showing me a house or you're showing me an institution, bring what the electric cable connections are, bring where the water pipes are, bring me those maps as well. And then let's overlay them and say where exactly, how you can make those connects.
A multi-layered approach, essentially.
Exactly. But unfortunately, what's happening is if you are going to build a house tomorrow and you ask your architect to show you a plan, he will show you a plan which looks like your house is the only one on the street. There's nothing else around it. And we have seen that happening even in our very recent government projects as well. It will look as though there is nothing else except that particular project on ground. And so that primarily is a problem that we imagine that we are the only ones who are living on that plot of land. So it has to happen at that level where you are thinking 3D when you're taking your maps to the civic authorities for approval. And that doesn't happen because unfortunately that's not how it's getting passed. That's not how plans are getting passed. They're getting passed because you have a certain setback, you have followed certain bylaws, and it's that's kind of given preeminence. So that's where we are faulting. So a large part of India itself, not just Delhi, is built by non-architects. Therefore, you're building in a place wherever you get a little plot of land. Even in our own DDA, you see that happening so often. You know, if somebody has got an extension in a lawn, they will kind of expand and make it another room. This is just a simple example. And there are laws in place which don't, or rather, you don't need permission to kind of say, oh, I'm just expanding this. I'll put a bamboo shed over this room. So then it becomes a temporary structure. And temporary structures technically can get passed. So that's actually happened, when CWG was happening in 2010. What came as a temporary bus shelter for 6 acres, today is 65 acres. And it is still contested property. It's still contested as a case. So, and that's all concretized. So the point is that what goes as temporary structures, and we know that among our own homes, in our own homes, in our neighborhoods, really isn't temporary at all. They become permanent very quickly. So it comes down to, duties and civic sense that every citizen should have towards knowing that the land that you own is not your own land, but it belongs to everybody.
And next we talk about a murder that has brought attention to an unusual but popular sport in rural Punjab. When we spoke to Indian Express's Divya Goyal, she told us about this murder.
So last month on June 23rd, there was an argument between two friends in Ikolaha village of Khanna in Ludhiana district of Punjab. And that argument ended in the death of one of them.
These two are Gurdeep Singh, who was 22, and Kuldeep Singh, who is 44.
They were great friends and they used to hang out together. But on June 23rd, Kuldeep, along with his son Daman Aujla, who is also in his 20s, they reached the residence of Gurdeep and started abusing him. Both of them were allegedly drunk. And after Gurdeep came out, Daman Aujla, he banged an iron rod in Gurdeep's head. And soon Gurdeep died of grievous head injuries.
Now, the argument that led to Gurdeep's demise was to do with a rural sport called kabutarbazi.
So there is a rural sport called a kabutarbazi, or what we call a pigeon racing, which is still very popular in rural Punjab. And both Kuldeep and Gurdeep, they used to organize kabutarbazi events in the village, and both owned a flock of around 100 pigeons. Gurdeep was very enthusiastic about keeping pigeons. So they together had organized one such event on June 23rd, and the argument happened over one of their rivals who was also invited to the event by Kuldeep. So Gurdeep did not want that he should be there, but Kuldeep had invited him. So there was an argument, and Gurdeep was annoyed that why their rival Tinku participated in that race. That is what the argument was about, which ended in a murder.
Now, this murder case has put kabutarbazi under a spotlight, which remains popular both in rural Punjab and several areas of Pakistan. Divya tells us that the sport seems to have originated during the Mughal era.
When it was a kind of an elite hobby, when the Nawabs and the Mughals, they used to keep pigeons and practice this as a hobby. But with time, kabutarbazi started to be associated with people who have nothing to do, people who are unemployed. So they would keep pigeons, fly them, and for the whole day they would keep gazing them in the sky at their pigeons. But it is surprising that even till date, it is surviving.
She says while the rules differ from place to place, in Punjab, it essentially involves keeping the birds in the sky for as long as possible.
So suppose if there are 90 pigeons participating in a race, it's not the one who will be the fastest who will be the winner, but the pigeon who will keep flying for the longest and sit in the last will be the winner.
The owners train their pigeons to maximize their flight duration. And these races, she says, are very well organized, especially for a sport that isn't officially recognized. For instance, consider the measures the owners take to distinguish their pigeons from others in the race.
So there are specific patterns in which they paint the feathers of their pigeons to recognize them while flying. One pigeon will be different from the other. One will have pink color on its feathers, the other will have green color on its feathers. One will have its tail painted, the other will have its face painted. So they smear their pigeons with different colors to give them a different identity from the competitor pigeon. Secondly, it's not just about 2-3 days that they prepare pigeons for this race. No, the breeding and the preparation for the pigeon races start months ahead of the races, and they breed them, they train them that you have to fly from one point to the other and then return in the evening. Pigeons are known to be great navigators. That is why they were used for delivering letters also in the older times, during the times of Rajas and Maharajas.
And so the owners utilize the pigeons' natural navigation skills to train them for the races. And what's important to note is that a significant amount of money is involved in this sport, particularly due to NRI sponsorships and the prizes one can win in these races.
So there are two ways a kabutarbazi is organized. One way is that all the participants, they pool in the entry fee. Each pigeon owner has to pool in a certain fee, let's say rupees 2,000. And so if there are, 20 pigeons participating, so it will be 40,000, right? So all of that 40,000 will go to the person who is winning the race, who is declared the winner. So apart from that, now they are also offering the prizes such as new refrigerators, air conditioners, bikes, bullet bikes, tractors, and even the expensive cattle like cows and buffaloes, the hybrids. And also the trophy cups, which is considered a very prestige thing for kabutar baz to win that cup. So it's not just about money and the prizes, but it is also a game for titles and identity for pigeon keepers in Punjab.
In fact, Divya tells us that the sport has also given rise to pigeon breeding, where birds are mainly divided into two categories: low flyers and high flyers. According to her, a pair of pigeons can cost as low as 500 to 2 lakh rupees depending on the breed. Some breeds like Firozpuri, Patialvi and Rampuri can reportedly fly for 9 to 11 hours even during summers.
So the level of craze for kabutarbazi is such now that we have specialized YouTube channels such as Star Kabutarbaz, on which the events from Punjab villages are broadcasted live, and they also interview the winners and everyone, and they interview them regarding ki how have you prepared your pigeons? How did you prepare them for the race?
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਬਾਈ, ਸਟਾਰ ਕਬੂਤਰਬਾਜ਼ ਚੈਨਲ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਤਮਾਮ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀਰੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਸੀਨੀਅਰ ਸਤਿਕਾਰਯੋਗ ਫੌਜੀ ਦੌਧਰ ਜੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਪੂਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਸੁਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੈ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀਆਂ ਦਾ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮੋਗੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਤੋਂ।
She says channels like these are elevating the sport to new heights, even though it is not officially recognized. And one of the main reasons for this is actually the kind of toll this takes on the pigeons.
While getting prepared for these races, they are forcefully bred. They are crammed into small cages for life. Their feet are tied with ropes so that they don't flee. Their feathers are chopped so that the new ones come.
They are also deprived of food and water and are even given laxatives so that they are lighter and can fly longer. And during these races, many of these birds faint and even die in extreme heat.
Because according to a senior bird expert we spoke from Punjab Agriculture University, Dr. Tejdeep Kaur, she said that exposing pigeons to such high temperature, because already their body temperature is 40 to 42 degrees Celsius on average. So when they fly, they start panting. If they will keep flying for too long in such excessive heat, there can be cardiac arrest and their heart will give up. And that is why after every few hours, they sit on a tree or near a water body to rest, to take water. But if you will force a pigeon to fly for so many hours, every pigeon can't take it according to their immunity levels, and they will faint and die.
This is why many animal rights activists, including senior BJP leader Maneka Gandhi, have voiced their opposition against the sport and have advocated for it to be banned.
So seeing all the kind of brutality that they are made to go through, there are several sections of Prevention of Cruelty to Animal Act which can be used to stop this. But then no action is taken and, nobody takes it seriously and no FIRs are registered against the people who organize these events. It is largely because there is no awareness and there are no complaints, because at the rural villages level, everyone is a part of it. Even the village sarpanches and the authorities, they are a part of it. They don't see it as any offense.
And in the end, we talk about Russia. Yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in the Russian capital Moscow to attend the 22nd India-Russia Annual Summit. While the two leaders have met a total of 16 times since 2014, this has not happened since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Over the last 2 years, New Delhi has maintained a diplomatic balancing act between Russia and Ukraine. While it has not explicitly condemned the Russian invasion, it has called for an international probe into the Bucha massacre and has expressed concerns over nuclear threats issued by Russian leaders. At the UN Security Council, India has taken a nuanced position and has abstained from voting against Russia in several resolutions. The annual summit between the Prime Minister of India and the President of the Russian Federation is the highest institutionalized dialogue mechanism in the strategic partnership between India and Russia. The last summit took place in New Delhi back in 2021, and since then, Modi and Putin have maintained regular contact through at least 10 telephone conversations to review progress on bilateral cooperation and exchange views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. Yesterday, talking about the summit, the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said it will be a great opportunity for both the leaders to talk directly to each other on several matters, including trade imbalances.
So both of us value very much the need for an annual summit. So even last year, I went to Moscow at the end of the year, and at that time, I carried a message from the Prime Minister that, look, we are committed to the annual summit and we will do it sooner rather than later. So to me, it's something which was waiting to happen. It's a regular occurrence. It is a way of taking stock of, any relationship. What you do is you look at the state of the world. There are things you want to do more. There are things you want to do differently. One of the big changes has actually been that our economic relationship with Russia has grown tremendously. How do we there are a lot of pluses. There are issues which come out of it, like the trade imbalance which has come out of it. So I would say, at a leadership level, it will be a great opportunity for Prime Minister Modi and President Putin to sit down and directly talk to each other. And then obviously...
Now, India has strong ties with Moscow and a strong dependence on Russia for defense supplies. Ever since the war began, India has been buying Russian oil at discounted prices to cushion the inflationary impact of rising oil prices. Meanwhile, Congress General Secretary Jairam Ramesh yesterday, attacking the ruling government, posed 3 questions to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The opposition leader asked whether the relationship between India and Russia has cooled off under Modi's leadership, why there was a huge trade deficit between the two countries, and whether the PM will raise the issue of 50 Indian youths that are fighting in the Russian army.
50 युवा भारत के रूस के सेना में भर्ती हुए हैं, यानी कि यहां भी अग्निवीर वहां भी अग्निवीर. 2 लोगों की मौत हुई है, 2 युवाओं की मौत हुई है युद्ध में. पर यह क्या दर्शाता है कि हमारे युवा रूस के आर्मी में भर्ती हो रहे हैं, यानी कि यहां गरीबी है, बेरोजगारी यहां है, उनको रोजगार नहीं मिलता, पेपर लीक होता है, कहीं सरकारी नौकरियों में भर्ती नहीं हो पाते, निजी कंपनियों में रोजगार नहीं मिलता, और रूस के आर्मी में जाके भर्ती होते हैं 50 लोग.
He said that Indian youths fighting in the Russian army indicates that they are desperate and looking for jobs. He said these youngsters have become Agniveers in Russia and questioned whether the Prime Minister will find out more about who is recruiting them and the political links behind this issue.
तो क्यों हमारे नॉन बायोलॉजिकल प्रधानमंत्री इस पर चुप हैं? इस उठाना चाहिए. क्या ये हमारे युवाओं के साथ ये खिलवाड़ नहीं है कि वो इतने मजबूर हो गए हैं कि रूस की आर्मी में उनको भर्ती करना पड़ा? किसने भर्ती कराया? किस ठेकेदार ने भर्ती कराया? क्यों कराया? ये बताना चाहिए ना. तो ये सब सवाल उठते हैं. युद्ध रोकने में मैं युद्ध रोकूंगा, मेरे वजह से युद्ध रुका है, वो सब दावा कर सकते हैं, पर असली बात तो ये है ना, ये 3 सवाल.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.